Good afternoon, everybody. We have a challenge, and in the first, I need your help in order to resolve the challenge. Among the professional schmoozers, this session is known to be called the graveyard session because most of you are now just after a food coma. Now, raise your hand. Who is now, what you want to do is really to fall asleep? Raise your hand. Who want to hear what we are saying? Raise your hand. So we have about 5% who want to sleep, 20% who want to hear us, and the rest, I guess, don't understand my accent. So we have to wake you up a little bit because I gave a talk in such a slot a few weeks ago, and the guy at the first row fell asleep. And I told the guy next to him, can you wake him up? So he looked at me and he said, you made him sleep, you wake him up. So in order to avoid it, we have a very distinguished panel here, and we don't want to insult them, so we will do a little bit of gymnastics before we start to wake you up. First of all, raise your left hand up, everybody. Everybody, raise your hand. Also you, raise your hand. You. Raise your right hand. Keep the left hand and raise the right hand. And now take a lot of air into your lungs and scream as strong as you can. 1, 2, 3. Let's do it one better. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I think that now there will a little bit. Did that guy woke up? No, this guy is totally attached, you know. Are you from England? Excuse me.
Can you text him?
Okay, thank you for coming to the conference. Thank you, Shelley, and thank you, Ziv. And we will start by asking the distinguished members of the panel to introduce themselves, what they are doing, and why they agreed to spend the work day and to come to this conference. Why don't you start, Mr. Espinel? Your name?
Jorge Espinel. I'm the head of global business development at Spotify. Joined the company recently. Before that, I was with 21st Century Fox, or News Corp, for many years. I agreed to join because Yossi was moderating the panel, and I've had the pleasure to meet Yossi many years ago at AOL. And obviously, the subject is something that is dear to my heart, and excited to share how we view the world at Spotify.
Good.
My name is Steve Patrizzi. I look after partner marketing at Pinterest. As some of you may know, we're a little different than some other platforms. We don't have journalists or editors creating content, and our content isn't really created by users either. It's really coming from a number of other sites, applications, other businesses who are either pinning that content themselves or they're making it so that their users pin their content. And so for me, coming to this kind of session, it's always, or this kind of event, it's always interesting to hear what are on the minds of our partners so we can best understand some of their opportunities, some of their goals, and how we can best help them.
David?
So I oversee digital for Fox Network, the television network, entertainment, and we do everything from distribute our content through apps and connected TVs and so on and so forth, and do a lot of the consumer engagement on Pinterest, Facebook, Twitter, and the like. And so I came here today, I guess, to hear what these guys have to say.
Okay, fair enough. By the way, Zev, the name of the session is... No,
Next big thing.
No,
it's next big thing, part 2.
You had another name.
That's a cut and paste problem.
Sight, sound, and motion. When I asked Zev, what is this name, sight, and motion, he told me that this is actually the hodgepodge panel, and he couldn't come with another name, so he came with sight.
So we can talk about whatever.
Yeah, but this reminds me when he said that we will have 3 guys who will be sight, side, and motion. It reminds me of that old picture. Can you put the slide, please? So that's the panel. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Okay, David.
Wait, we have 2.
Which one resembles you the most?
This one, you cover your eyes.
Yeah, can you please take a photo? No, can you?
It's going to be on Twitter. It's going to be embarrassing.
Pin it.
Hopefully it's not.
David.
Sir.
Okay, we know what are the issues.
You know what the issues are.
I know what the issues. I don't know what is the solutions.
What are the issues in sight, sound, and motion?
No. In your specific space.
Well, you know, from my perspective, it truly is the platinum era of television. This is, you know, there are more people watching television product than ever. It's an amazing time. You know, I've been working in this field for, gosh, a long time. Since the mid-'90s, I've been pushing the boulder up the hill of digital content distribution and so forth. And now the boulder is rolling down the hill in a really big way, and it's exciting. What you know, as you've heard
Depends
today,
on which side of the boulder you are.
yes,
you
it
know.
does. And you know, and that's the challenge. You want to be pushing it, and you want to stay behind it, but beside it, you know, hopefully not get crushed by it. But it's a great time in that business. That said, you know, what makes it so exciting is that viewers are viewing things in ways that people didn't anticipate, that nobody knew how quickly things would change when they started to change. I think many of us have been talking about it for 15 years, but as it starts to change, it's changing rapidly. So we're trying to stay ahead of it. From my perspective, doing all the digital products, it's very exciting because we're giving viewers new ways to watch product, advertisers new ways to reach audiences, and hopefully greater consumer experiences. So that's the opportunity. But it is a challenge because you have to support a business model at the same time as you try and do all of these things, and that's what makes it interesting.
What before we move forward, what are your current offering in the digital space in your business?
Well, everything from Fox Now on our website. You can view our shows at fox.com to Fox Now on iOS and Android, Roku, Samsung TVs, and many other platforms. Increasingly, it's about engagement with audiences. We on Facebook, for example, we have close to 300 million likes across our shows on Facebook. So it's a question of turning that audience that has raised their hand and say, I like this show, and turning them not only into loyal fans, but advocates for your shows and creating what we call earned media. So it's all of those things and eventually driving them back to watch television on whatever terms they want, live television, VOD, DVR, and all of the digital products that I talked about.
Can we talk a little bit metrics or like what percentage of
I like metrics.
Okay.
Metrics are good.
What percentage of your business is coming now from digital?
It's a tricky question because
This is why I asked it.
Yeah. No, I think what's more interesting is if you look at an increasing amount of the viewership is coming from nonlinear platforms.
Please note, this is a very good move. I asked him a question, he gave an answer to a different question, and this is how you should answer a disturbing interviewer.
Thank you. Ronald Reagan was a genius at that. I've studied him very carefully. No,
usually they tell me this is not the right question. The question you should have asked is...
Exactly. And so an increasing number, on several shows, greater than 50% of the viewership is on nonlinear environments. And I think that's the important thing to look at. We still have a huge audience in live television that's still very vibrant, but
it's dying.
Well,
this audience.
I think there's a lot of growth in digital. I think there's a lot of growth in nonlinear viewing, and that's why I said that's the question you should have asked.
Okay.
So I agree with you, Yossi. That's a great question. Thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you. Thank you for straightening me out. One last question before we move to Steve.
Oh, and we like to create a lot of cool stuff that gets pinned on Pinterest. Steve?
Good.
You're good.
David, Steve, can I ask David one last question? David, what can you tell us about the N word?
Nachas.
That's good, you know. I can discuss it, not, but how do you see Netflix interfering with your... First of all, rate the question on 1 to 10.
It's a little obvious for my taste, so I'm going to give it a 4.
4, okay.
But I'll answer it because I like you, Yossi. So Netflix is a great friend of content companies like 21st Century Fox. We create a lot of television and movie product that Netflix distributes, and we do a lot of business with them. So in many respects, they're helping people see our product. They're helping people who have not caught on to our current shows catch up on previous seasons. So Netflix is great from that perspective. They've talked about how they're going to make how they want to be the only place that stacks episodes of television shows, and so meaning at Netflix you'll be able to watch show after show after show after show, but they would like for companies like ours at the network level to not be able to do that. They've talked about that publicly. I actually think that's bad for the consumer, and so in that case, I'm not a huge fan of that aspect of what Netflix is doing, even though overall I think they're a great company and they're doing good things. I think consumers are proving with their behavior that they want to be able to get into television shows whenever they get around to it, whenever they hear about it, whenever their friends are getting excited about it. And I think as a television network in the 21st century, we have to be able to provide that experience to our consumers, because I think that's what consumers are going to demand. And so I don't think that's something that is just a Netflix experience. It should be a Fox Now experience. It should be a Hulu experience. It should be, wherever you choose to view television style product, you should be able to view in whatever way you want.
Thank you very much. I think he's entitled to a round of applause.
Thank you. Can I leave the stage now?
You can leave the stage. No, stay. No. Steve, in order to avoid the embarrassment that David gave me, why don't you ask yourself the question and answer it?
How do I get off this panel as fast as I possibly can? This is the most amazing panel I've ever been part of. I'm both entertained and intimidated at the same exact time.
Nobody is going to do any bad things to you unless you do it to yourself, so.
That is exactly.
Carry the one. Yeah, got it. Wait, so you're serious? Ask myself my own
I'm
question.
serious. I'm not serious never, but go ahead. Anybody from the audience want to ask this? Yeah, go ahead, over there.
Oh, I have a question.
Your time is over. Ask a question.
Okay, so my question is, I love Pinterest, but a lot of these people in the audience are advertisers. How is Pinterest a medium for advertisers?
That's a softball there.
that's
Thank
nice.
you. Very nice.
That's a terrific question. Tell him it's a wonderful medium.
So,
Could you rate that question?
yeah, that's 9. That's amazing. And let's see, is it possible to answer this question without sounding like I'm giving a sales pitch? So actually, you know what? It's not clear that it is yet. We're starting to do some experiments with promoting some pins. Our thinking is that there's a lot of talk about native advertising. We're not really consumed too much with that conversation. We're thinking about how do we take organic content and give that content more distribution. And ideally, it's being distributed, it's being presented to folks who would have wanted to see that content, but for some reason, either they're not following the right sources or they just would not have discovered it on their own. But ideally, it's organic content with more distribution. There are already a number of partners who are using the platform to distribute their content. Again, many of them try to get their own users to pin their content. And in many ways, it works somewhat like an SEO opportunity. So as users are pinning your content, they're putting it into boards, they're putting it into collections that they feel it belongs with. And it's kind of interesting. We have a couple of examples of a jar of Vaseline that gets pinned into a board about glycerin-free products. So if, a bunch of products people can use, their skin won't flare up. But then it gets pinned into a board about things that every new parent should have because it's great for taking care of diaper rash. And then it gets pinned into a board about running because in addition to the right shoes and shirts, it's really good for making sure you don't get chapped lips if you're running in the cold. And so just by making sure that object could be pinned, it's getting all this distribution in front of all these different audiences with a number of different use cases. This continues to go on and on and on. And so in many cases, the juxtaposition of that object, that image, in a board around a specific subject or interest kind of becomes an ad itself. It's not overtly advertising. It doesn't look like a produced ad, but the nature of someone putting that into a collection they feel describes its use case and happening thousands of times for certain objects is a pretty interesting marketing opportunity. The question then is how do you make sure that object has more distribution? And so that's what we're starting to learn with this promoted pins experiment. It's a really manual experiment at the moment. We haven't built the ad serving technology yet. We're just really trying to get a sense for how do users respond to this? Are there any insights that help us understand how this will actually play out? And it's something we hope to have in a more scaled distribution or a product or offering in 2014. But right now, we're just learning to see if it actually is a meaningful advertising platform.
Thank you. The gentleman at the back, I'm sorry, can you ask your question? Can you introduce yourself, Stuart? I know who you are, but probably I'm the only one.
I mean, there was an interesting nuance there, though, with the relevance to television. I mean, we're somewhat agnostic when it comes to thinking about other media. For us, it's about how do we help users best collect all the content that relates to their interest, and in some cases so if I'm interested in mountain biking, then yes, maybe I want to have everything in one collection that includes some television content around great mountain biking techniques. Maybe it includes some actual products of mountain bikes that I found on a retailer somewhere. Maybe it includes some suggested trails or places where I can go and actually do that, all in one collection. And we're always thinking about how do we make those pins more actionable. And so in the case of the product pin, I turn myself off here. That sounded awkward. That actually sounded awkward. Yeah, he turned me off. Awkward thing to say. Maybe that product pin includes information like, is it in stock? How much does it cost? We've introduced a mechanism now where if any of those attributes changes, that pin actually reaches out to you to let you know, hey, it's in stock. Or hey, the price has changed on the pin that you pinned a couple months back. The place pins or some things we're doing around movie pins where we show who directed the program, who was in it, so that you get a little more context around that object, all coming together in one interest. So as much as we can bring in content from many different media, we think it's really interesting. We haven't necessarily locked in on, hey, we think that one medium is more interesting than another.
I would just add, since you asked specifically about television, I agree with your assessment. It is, Pinterest is interesting to us from that perspective. That's why we use it and enable it and really like what Steve and Pinterest are doing. I don't think we've nailed how that linkage, though, as Steve was talking about, how to drive people back to watching and so forth. And I think that's an area where we can innovate a little bit. But one thing Steve was talking about that just struck me is, one of the things that's been lost in digital media is the notion of collections. You know, when the DVD came around, people were buying lots of DVDs that they never watched. They still have shrink wrap on them that they would put on their shelf, because that collection of DVDs behind them or in their living room made a statement to their friends about, here are the things I like, this is a part of me. And I think Pinterest to some degree does that naturally for people in the digital age. And I think for people who watch television, and thank God a lot of people watch a lot of television.
For the time being.
Okay, we'll see. We should talk about that later, because I'd like to know what they're going to be doing if they're not watching television kind of product. But maybe you'll tell me.
They will watch another channel.
Okay, look, can we get to that? Yossi, I'll call on you in a minute. So anyway, so all I was saying is that for people who watch television and today, and you know, they pin those things that they like, the characters, the shows, and so on and so forth, into their collections. It becomes another way to communicate to their friends and associates. These are the things I like. These are the things that are meaningful in my life. And I think it begins to serve that kind of purpose in the world of television and in people's digital lives. So Jorge, what do you have on your pinboard?
Go ahead.
Am I part of the target demo?
You are now coming in, you know, like you are in the third act. You know, you were the smoking gun which comes at the third act.
That's right. I gotta say, I play a lot with Pinterest in the very beginning. I think it's on, right? Yeah, I play with the platform a lot in the beginning, but yeah, it's right now not in kind of like my main behavior. It's on my phone.
Tell us about your product.
Spotify. It's a product that
How many users?
6 million subscribers, 24 million users. Active users on the platform. So we have a freemium model, which we enable users to access
Smile
all the world's...
is photo. Yeah, good.
So where we enable consumers
Keep
to
an
access...
artificial smile when you are talking.
We get that when he
I've been
just left.
smiling most of the panel, so he got plenty of chance to get me on the right.
Is that true that 25% of the users of Spotify pay for it? That's an amazing statistic.
It is a great number. That's
Wow, that is great.
It is when you think about the way freemium models traditionally have worked in digital, it's actually a pretty remarkable conversion model. And
this I understand is since you joined the company.
Well,
Yes, exactly. Nobody subscribed before Jorge came.
those are the numbers I can share since I joined things. Obviously, had nothing but accelerated. No, in joking. I mean, that's one of the things that is remarkable about the company is that it has built a great product with a freemium model that really works and that has built a scale. And as we roll it out across the world, we are preserving that same principle of a freemium model, get consumers access, enable them to try music and experience music in a convenient way, create their own collections, have their music in a place where it can always be with them, enable them to create their own playlist, share with friends, and really have a new way to interact with music. And I think that is the purpose of what our product does.
What is the difference between Spotify and Pandora?
So Pandora is an online streaming radio offering that has a particular a catalog of songs that they play, and has under a certain set of rules and restrictions, and it's really online radio. We have in the US, we have a very similar offering, and the idea is, if you haven't used online radio streaming, is basically you can select it starting with a genre or a particular artist, and that generates a series of songs that that are related to what your input is in the machine, and then you can skip a certain number of times, and after that you're not able to skip. So you don't have full control over access. So we have a similar offering here in the US, but our product was really born out of an on-demand experience and an ability for you to listen exactly to the songs that you want, and to have access to as much of the catalog as the licensors enable us to have. And that's, we think about it enabling users to access all the music in the world. So the difference is if you like not just an on-demand experience, but listen to your specific songs, to your specific playlist. So have your own session of when you're working out, you pick the songs that you want to listen to, and you want to have them on the go, and you want to download them. That's the difference. So there's a difference between owning CDs and listening to radio.
David has a great question to ask
Okay.
you. And you should tell him this is not the right question and tell him what is the right
tell
question.
me it's not the right question. It was actually the perfect jumping off spot because we were talking about collections, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm just curious, because one of the beautiful things about Spotify is the fact that you create your playlists, you share them with your friends, you see what other people are listening to. How important is that versus just I pick the songs I want to play? Like how that collections thing that we were talking about seems to tie you guys together, and I just wonder how important that is.
No, it is extremely important.
How do you rate the question?
The question is actually, I would say like
1 to 10, 1 to 10.
I would say like an 8, actually, 8 or 9.
I'll take it.
Yeah. The question, no, it is important, and this has a greater impact around actually most of the applications, and TV is a perfect example of that in how we're, as consumers, there has been a time that we've been excited about getting access to everything that we have, and it's good and interesting, but all of a sudden we're starting to realize that is a lot of work. That to start searching for everything you want is a lot of work, and you want a little bit of more lean-back experiences. And so when you start looking at the product at Spotify, a lot of the emphasis that we played on recently is about enabling you to discover, to have recommendations for those playlists that other people think are that playlists that are popular, playlists that your friends have, playlists that may be relevant to your taste based on the things that you've heard. So the product is really ultimately about having unique long sessions of listening experiences, and that's what ultimately what we're emphasizing a lot on the product now.
Steve, we are talking about music, we are talking about photos, we are talking about moving images or whatever you call them. What really attracts most the consumer, the user?
I think it's this notion that it's a discovery experience, as Jorge was saying. The founders started the company with this idea of collections, of, hey, that's something that is really well served offline. You can build these collections, and the founders, one of them collected butterflies, the other one collected old 45 records. Many of us collect things like baseball cards, and part of the beauty of collecting isn't just the finding the objects, it's how you decide to build that collection. So you could build the collection of baseball cards, and you could organize them by position, by player, by year, by team. There are a number of ways you decide to organize those cards, and it provides a very different meaning to that collection and all the things in that collection. And so the idea that, wow, as I find amazing things across the web, across apps, I can build these collections that are both meaningful to me, but are something I feel very comfortable expressing with others. They decided to make these collections public by default out of the gate. And through that, kind of created a discovery experience. Wow, what one person calls summer recipes, another person calls fried fantasies, and they've realized, wow, there's some overlap. I noticed that there's some things that both of us have in each of our collections, but I also see some things that I didn't know about that are still relevant to me. I don't know this person. I didn't go to school with them. I don't need to know who they are. I don't need to know what they do every day. All I know is this person shares similar interests, and through that, I'm discovering new things that matter to my interests. And so that was kind of their first aha moment. It's like, wow, there's this different type of social network being formed where it's people connecting with things. Other people are somewhat of a conduit there, but it's people connecting with things, not so much people connecting with people. And then the second thing to notice is, wow, in that process, people are basically indexing all of the web's content and categorizing it into interests. So, now, Yahoo used to index content through a human element before, right? You would submit your site to Yahoo. They would decide, yes, it belongs in this directory. You had a real human subjectivity to that. Google obviously scaled that. They used technology to better index the web, but they lost some of the human subjectivity in that process. And so in many ways, what's happening is a nice complement to the algorithmic organization of the web. Now you have people going out and taking content at an atomic level and deciding here's where it belongs. And so I think that's part of the allure. Everyone is participating in this. How do we make all the web's content more discoverable?
This means that we are left 0 seconds. Shelley. This is the timer. Yeah.
Yossi, you're done. But
blinking
I would
red-
never
that-
come up.
This means that we are done.
Yeah, I understand,
What does
Yossi.
that blinking red zero mean?
I'm too scared to actually ask
Look,
you to get off the stairs.
this country is.
Shelley, that was a bad question.
This country was. This
Ladies and
country.
gentlemen, Yossi
Hey,
Vardi, here
just
we
a
go.
minute. No. This country was founded on democratic principles. We are going to make a vote if we should get off the stage or not. Who wants us to continue? Raise your hand.
Yeah, except that we have to move on. But God, so it's almost like Yossi Vardi, David Wertheimer,
occupy the
Espinel,
stage.
and Steve Patrizzi, everybody.
Thank you, Yossi.
That's great. Good sport. Well done.